These soft cut-out sugar cookies are perfect for just about any holiday, but especially for Christmas. They're made with a mix of flour and cornstarch instead of all flour to give you a really soft, chewy cookie that does not spread in the oven. You're going to love them. Hi, I'm Lindsay from Life, Love, and Sugar, and today we're making soft cut-out sugar cookies. All right, so the first thing we're gonna do is combine our dry ingredients. We've got our all-purpose flour and cornstarch and some salt. I'm gonna stir these up. And then we'll set this aside while we work on everything else. All right, so now we're gonna grab our butter. It should be at room temperature. And our regular granulated sugar. We're gonna pop this on the mixer, cream the butter and sugar together for about 2 to 3 minutes until it's light and fluffy. And so this is what you're looking for. It's light and fluffy as compared to this that's on here from before. It didn't get quite as creamed and it's still kind of coarse. It's a little bit darker in color. So you're looking for this light, fluffy, creamy texture, and then you're ready to move on. All right, so now we're going to add our egg and vanilla extract. We'll mix that together until well combined. All right, once that is well combined, we're going to add our dry ingredients. All right, now you want to stir this until it's pretty well combined, but you don't want to overmix it. So if it gets a little crumbly and you feel like you need to keep mixing, just take it off the mixer and finish by hand. All right, now I'm actually gonna put this into some plastic wrap to refrigerate it for about an hour or so, up to 3 days. You don't have to refrigerate the cookie dough before using it, but you do get an even softer, chewier cookie if you do. So at least an hour, up to 3 days, we're gonna go ahead and pop this in the refrigerator. All right, so once you've refrigerated your cookie dough for a little bit, we're gonna go ahead and roll that out so we can cut out our cookies. So I usually go ahead and divide this in half. You do want to bring it back to room temperature if it's been in the fridge for a few days. Kind of form it into a little bit of a disc shape, and then we can roll it out. Now I like to roll out my cookie dough between 2 sheets of parchment paper rather than flouring my surface and rolling them out that way. Not only does the parchment paper help things not stick to my rolling pin, but I'm also not adding extra flour to my cookie dough and drying it out. The great thing about this recipe is they really don't spread. So you can make them as thick or as thin as you want to. I think 1/4 of an inch is about the right amount for a nice thick cookie that doesn't break really easily and is nice and chewy, but you can really make them as thin or as thick as you want. You just may need to adjust the baking time a little bit. All right, now you could go ahead and just cut out your cookies, but I actually like to freeze the cookie dough in the freezer for about 5 minutes so it gets nice and hard, because then when I use my cookie cutters to cut the cookies out, you get nice crisp edges and they're really easy to move to your cookie sheet. So I'm gonna pop this in the freezer for a few minutes. All right, so once your cookie dough is nice and firm, you're ready to cut out your cookies. All right, so this is nice and firm, which makes it really easy to cut out these cookies. You're gonna have nice crisp edges, corners. And sometimes they just lift right out of the dough, ready to go onto your cookie sheet. Nice and easy. All right, now you've got your nice cut out sugar cookies ready to go in the oven for about 7 to 10 minutes. All right, so to get started making the icing, we'll grab our powdered sugar. We're gonna add our corn syrup to the powdered sugar. Some vanilla extract for flavor. And we're gonna add 4 tablespoons of milk. We can add more later if we need to, but we're just gonna start with 4 tablespoons. We're just gonna whisk all this together. It may seem a little dry and crumbly at first, but it'll come together. And then as we need to, we can add more milk and thin it out. You don't want to add too much up front because you can't take it out. You can always add more. I like to make it so that it's a consistency that I can use both for lining my cookies and flooding them. So I want it thin enough to flood my cookies, but thick enough to stay in place for when I'm lining them. So what we're looking for is, as you drizzle this icing back into itself, you want it to kind of become part of the icing again within about 3 or 4 seconds. If it holds its shape longer for that, then it's probably still too thick. Now that we've got this at the right consistency, we're going to divide this into a few different bowls, and all that depends really on how many colors you're going to use for your cookies. I have 4 colors, but one of them is white. So we're going to put some white into a bowl, and then we'll divide the rest between the other 3 bowls. Now for coloring your icing, you really do want to stick with gel icing colors, not food coloring. These are much thicker, so they're not going to thin out your icing too much. You can get a nice vibrant color without thinning out the icing. Food coloring, you're going to have to add too much in order to get a vibrant color. So stick with gel icing colors. There's several brands available. You don't really need a whole lot, especially because we're not working with large amounts of icing here. For the coppery color for the gingerbread man, I like to use a little bit of copper and a little bit of brown. So you can add your icing colors to squeeze bottles, which makes them really easy to use and flood cookies with. You can also use piping bags with small piping tips. You could even use a Ziploc bag. So whatever you have, feel free to use. Let's grab our cookies. And maybe we'll start with the Christmas tree. Now, one thing to note about these icings is they do dry out. So if they're sitting for a while, you may want to put a paper towel over them and kind of dribble some water over top so you've got a moist towel over it, keeping it from drying out while you're working. Now, if at any point you find you have some little imperfections or you don't like the way something is looking on your cookie, you can actually use a toothpick and just kind of spread it around to make a straighter line or help fill something in. The toothpicks can be really helpful with that. Whenever you're done decorating your cookies, go ahead and let them sit for a while and let the icing harden. You will be able to stack them once it does. And then you can plate them, get them ready for your guests. They're perfect for the holidays. I know everyone will love them. For the full recipe, head over to lifeloveandsugar.com.